Gen V Season 2 just introduced a new character, the Dean of Godolphin, Cipher. But I think the show is hinting at the fact that he's not a new character at all. I think Cipher might actually be Thomas Godolphin, the same Thomas Godolphin that died at the start of the first episode of Season 2. And if you guys were paying attention to the scene where Thomas died and you looked at his ID badge, it says that he has access to the research facility indefinitely. You tie that in with Cipher, we're seeing his motivation, his use of powers or lack thereof, and the connections that line up perfectly with him being Thomas Godolphin. So in this video, I'm breaking down every clue that shows Cipher might actually be Thomas in disguise. If it's true, I think I know what Project Odessa is and how Project Odessa will be the key to defeating Homelander in the series finale of The Boys. So click that subscribe button if you want to find out how Gen V Season 2 ties directly into the finale of The Boys. But with that being said, let's dive into who exactly is Thomas Godolphin. Thomas Godolphin was a scientist who worked directly under Frederick Vought, the man who created Compound V and Vought International as we know it. Now, Frederick Vought wasn't just a scientist or a regular businessman. If you go back to The Boys, Stormfront told us how Frederick Vought was an ardent Nazi who was obsessed with creating the perfect being, who truly believed in all the Nazi ideologies of the Ubermensch, aka the Superman, which is why they created Compound V in the first place, to create the perfect being. When Frederick realized that Hitler and the Nazis were going to lose the war, he defected and joined the US and helped give Americans Compound V. That's where Thomas Godolphin comes in. Together they started Godolphin University so that they can study the effects of Compound V on young adults as well as other people, as we saw in the flashback with Thomas Godolphin where all the other scientists were trying the Compound V on themselves. But that's where everything went wrong, because in 1967 the scientists that were working on this variation of Compound V all injected themselves with it. Thomas tried to warn them that it wasn't ready, which shows us that Thomas was actively involved in the creation of Compound V, because if you go back to Season 1, Dean Chetty, who died, before she died, she told us that Thomas Godolphin was nothing but a research scientist sent to Godolphin to research superhero teenagers and how their powers work. But with the flashback, we see that he's not just there to study them psychologically, he's also there to study the effects of Compound V and how to control people's powers. Unfortunately, everything went left in 1967 and everyone died, or so it looked like it, because Thomas was the only one of those scientists that did not inject himself with the variation of Compound V, which means that he did not die like the rest of them. All we saw was that he passed out before he could pull the fire alarm. And on top of that, like I said earlier, we zoom in onto his work ID. It says that he has access to the research facility indefinitely, which means that if he were to survive, he could come and go as he pleases. To me, this hints that Thomas never died. Instead, he went underground, hiding behind his Odessa research. Dean Chetty said he was a behavioral scientist, and that's because she's human. I don't think she was ever part of Vought's inner circle, so she doesn't know exactly the true scope of Project Odessa or even what Project Odessa is. Because we know for a fact that Thomas Godolphin was a Compound V researcher, as we saw in the flashback, and when he mysteriously died, Project Odessa should have stopped, but it continued. And that's when we're introduced to our latest character, the character of Cipher. Cipher is the new character, and he's the new Dean of Godolphin after Dean Chetty's death. He's very manipulative, but we don't see him having any sort of powers, but apparently he knows how everyone's powers work. He's very adept at understanding. As we saw when he was teaching his class in the show, he takes a different approach at understanding people's powers. It's not just the surface level. He goes deep beyond what actually makes you tick. How do your powers work exactly? Kind of like the same research that Thomas Godolphin was involved in, especially since Cipher had such a deep interest in Marie. And we find out in the first 3 episodes, not only is Marie Project Odessa, but the fact that Cipher was there when she was born, and he was also there when they were captured, keeping his eye on Marie, showing that the emphasis on Project Odessa, which started with Thomas Godolphin, actually trickles down, and Cipher is continuing that work, which all revolves around Marie. Now, that's not enough to say that Cipher is Thomas Godolphin, but because he's the new dean, he now lives in Dean Chetty's former house, which I can assume was Thomas Godolphin's house when he was dean of the school. But what makes it even more suspicious is the fact that Cipher has bumped up security around the dean's house, and not just that, Besides the decoration and the changing the carpet, there's also a new secret vault room with something hidden in there that wasn't there in the first season when Dean Shetty lived in the house, showing us that Cipher is hiding something. Maybe the research that he's doing on Odessa, which is why he was so obsessed with Kate finding Marie. Because whatever it is that's hidden behind the door, I feel like it has something to do with Marie and Project Odessa. Because ultimately, Project Odessa is the secret weapon that they're going to use against whoever doesn't follow along Vought's ideology and who doesn't follow along with their soup supremacy agenda. So when we finally get behind that door, because we know we're going to, they wouldn't introduce it otherwise, we're going to find out, I think, that Cipher is actually Thomas Godolkin and his true identity is hidden behind that door, and the keys to actually unlocking Marie's secret potential in Project Odessa. So he's here to finish the work he started decades ago, not with Marie's birth, but from the 60s when him and Thomas Vaught were working side by side together to create the perfect super being who Stormfront thought could have been Homelander. But after the way that Cipher talked about Homelander almost as though he's unhinged and how much he's obsessed with superpowers, which he is, and the fact that Cipher knows that shows us that he's pretty much entrenched in Vought's inner workings, so much so that he would have to be Thomas Godolkin. But the real question is, what is Project Odessa? If Thomas Godolkin found a way to extend his life to continue this research, what exactly is it? My theory, Project Odessa we know directly ties into Marie, but I don't think it's unique to Marie. I also think it had something to do with Newman, RIP, but she died last season in The Boys. But because their powers are so similar, I think what Project Odessa is the ability to control not just blood, but Compound V. Hear me out. We know Marie has the power to manipulate blood. We see her do it throughout the first 2 seasons. We saw Newman do the same thing. But we also see that Marie has the ability to use that same power to have your blood heal you, remove things from your blood. So what if Marie were to master her abilities to the point where she could isolate parts of your blood and remove compounds that were a part of your bloodstream? You guys see where I'm going here? Project Odessa might be a way to control superpowered beings via someone like Marie stripping them of their Compound V. The biggest threat of all of The Boys is Homelander. He is the most powerful hero on the show, the most powerful hero in the verse. No one can stop him, not even the people who created him, because he was born with Compound V. But what if you're able to isolate the Compound V from his blood, therefore stripping him of his powers? Marie can't do that yet because she's inexperienced, but we see how Thomas Godolkin's whole spiel was to know how to control soups. And the best way to control someone like Homelander is to remove what makes him the most powerful, and that's the Compound V in his blood. Now imagine Frederick Vaught has his master race of beings, superpowered beings, at his beck and call because he has someone like Marie, aka Project Odessa. Either you fall in line and become his Ubermensch, or you lose your powers and he has Marie strip them from your bloodstream. Marie can't do it yet, but with the way Cipher is focused on her and wants her to hone her powers, and he's so obsessed with her learning exactly how they work, that might be the key to stopping Homelander, which is why Stan kept Newman as his daughter so close all these years on The Boys, because that was his secret weapon against Soups. Homelander was never a threat to Stan because not only did he know he controlled Vaught, he also had Newman in his back pocket. But now that she's gone, Marie, being Project Odessa, is the one key left that can save not only Godolkin University and all her friends, but the entirety of the world of The Boys from someone like Homelander, which is why Gen V Season 2 is going to lead us directly into the finale of The Boys, because they're going to use Marie as their secret weapon to stop Homelander. And I think Sister Sage found out about this, which is why she brought Cipher or Godolkin back in the picture to get Marie. Sister Sage is the true mastermind behind what's going on with Homelander, and because she's plotted everything since the start of Season 4 of The Boys, I can see her being behind all this and using this as an ace up her sleeves to stop Homelander. But guys, that's just my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, peace.